right, Bears fans, I want to take a moment and look at one of the hot topics coming out this offseason. Particularly, I want to talk about the Chicago Bears draft that recently happened. Now, as you know, the Chicago Bears were without a first-round pick thanks to the Clio trade, which I know some people have some mixed feelings about. But the truth is, the Clio trade was one as a GM you have to make. You have to put your team in a window, and you're always trying to. The fact that Trubisky has struggled doesn't mean that Ryan Pace was wrong to put his team in that window. But let's talk about what it takes when you're a GM without a first-round pick and you are trying your best to put your team in a chance to win that season. Well, the first thing you have to be able to do is you have to be able to come away with players in round two who can come in and contribute pretty much immediately. And when you look at what Ryan Pace was able to do, he was really able to put together a second round that does that. You have Cole Kmet who comes in, and I know that people say, oh, tight end can take a long time to develop, but the reality is this is a kid who's coming in. He's pretty polished. He runs an NFL route tree. He does have to work on his blocking, but the thing that the Bears are going to ask him to do really limits the amount that he's going to have to transition to the NFL, and it should make him quite a bit easier. The reality is Ryan Pace probably got a guy who can potentially be starting by week 3, maybe week 4 after he's got some work in, and he's got a great mentor in Jimmy Graham. I know people don't like hearing the term mentor. You don't bring in a player as a mentor. Graham may not be what he once was. But the fact of the matter is he still has enough in the tank to be effective in the offense as a person and a threat over the middle. And then he also can turn around and mentor Kemet as he's coming up and he's learning the ropes. I got to tell you, I like the move. I know a lot of people didn't, but when you're working with the limited draft capital that Pace had, and you're looking at a decimated tight end roster like he had, I really think he did the best to make lemonade out of the lemons that he had in front of him. Then you go out and you get a cornerback like Johnson, who really could be the day one starter across from Kyle Fuller. Guys, we really are looking at the starting backfield at cornerback for the defense. Is it an upgrade? Well, I would argue that it is. Amukamara towards the end was really having trouble keeping pace with receivers. He was creating big gaps. He was getting beat over the top. They were having to dedicate a lot of safety help and cheat over to that side of the field to cut it off deep to make sure that he wasn't getting beat deep and getting burned. He could still generally keep things in front of him, and he was great at coming up and tackling, but he really had lost a step. Johnson's athleticism is proven. He's able to fly all around the field and able to shake things up and make things work. In the end, I really believe that this ends up being a win for the Bears. This second round is not going to produce a Khalil Mack or a Zach Ertz or a Travis Kelce. So let's be honest. I mean, we're not talking about people who are automatic locks for first ballot Hall of Fame here. We're talking about players who are going to come in and make solid contributions to this offense from day one. If I had told you beginning at the end of last season after an 8-8 record that Pace was going to come in with the limited draft capital that he had, and he was going to land 2 starters who honestly could be day one starters, but one is going to be day one and the other one could be starting by game 4, you'd have thought I was crazy. You'd have said there's no way he can do that, not with this draft and not with who he has, and yet here he is. He's done it. Now, also, let's take a look at some of the other picks that he made. Later on, he grabbed Mooney, the speedster from Tulane. Now, he got he really wanted to inject some speed into this offense. Now, some people are going to say, oh, well, he's small, he's undersized. And, of course, that always brings injury concerns into play. There's always going to be concerns when you have a smaller player playing in the NFL. But let's stop and look at what Nagy is really working with here. He's trying to get more towards the Kansas City model, which really is the Andy Reid model, which goes back to his time not just in Kansas City, but also his time in Philadelphia. In this offense, it's about receivers who have 2 things, speed and the ability to run routes. And you're always looking for players who can do both. Can they run faster than anyone else on the field, and can they do so by getting in and out of their routes, creating separation, and then breaking away? This is the classic West Coast mentality. Go back to Steve Walsh, George Seifert, this idea of having fast little players who can get the ball in space, make someone miss, and take off to the races, throwing these short passes, slants, ins, outs, quick fades, and turning them loose on an opposing backfield where they don't have to deal with linebackers and congestion in the middle of the field. Honestly, that's really what Pace is trying to do for Nagy. You look at the signing of Ted Ginn Jr. after that. Now you're talking about one strong, physical, tall receiver, and Allen Robinson that defenses have to respect as creating a large target for Mitch Trubisky. Plus you have Jimmy Grant. So you have two large targets with huge catch radiuses that are going to be available for him as a security blanket. But you've also got these two speedsters, and now you get into a 12 personnel setting. One tight end, one running back, two tight ends, one running back with Kemet, and you've got Allen Robinson out on one side, and you've got either a Mooney or a Ginn out on the other, threatening, or you drop back into 11 personnel, one tight end, one running back, three wide receivers. Now you've got Allen Robinson on one side, Ted Ginn Jr. on the other side, and you've got Darrell Mooney in the middle. You've also got Anthony Miller to come in and play the slot on occasion when you do a four wide receiver set, who brings some athleticism and some ability to climb up and attack the ball at its highest point. So Pace has really done some things here that should put us in more of the mode of the Kansas City Chiefs. Slants, dinks, and dunks. I know not popular with a large segment of fans who want to see two tall receivers like the Dallas Cowboys had in the 90s with Michael Irvin, and just throw the ball up there and let them go up and get it. But guys, that's not the way the NFL is really geared today. Today is much more about getting speedsters, putting them in space where nobody else is around them, getting them the ball, letting them make somebody miss, and then get off to the races. Honestly, it's about time the Chicago Bears caught up with a more modern offense. Because that Irvin Harper style offense it was great in the 90s, but as we've gone into the era of nickel defenses, cover three, a lot of man play, man cover two, things like that, you're not seeing as much of it anymore because it's a gamble. And you're putting the ball up there in the air, and these defensive backs are now so athletic, you're going to get picked off a lot. And the passing games just don't work like that anymore. I like what they're doing. I like the direction they're heading, and I think it's going to be an overall positive for the Bears. Also, let's talk a little bit about the Gibson who Pace signed as an edge rusher. Now, some people are going to say, well, why did we sign an edge rusher? We have Quinn and Mack and they're it. But Aaron Lynch played a really pivotal role for the Bears last year, kind of rotating and keeping those pass rushers, Floyd and Mack, fresh. So the problem that you had with Aaron Lynch was that you kind of knew who he was. He was who he was. He's not going to develop anymore. He's a one-trick pony. He can do some stuff rushing the passer, but you got what you got. By bringing in a young player who can challenge, and generally they believe give you the same production that Lynch did, you give yourself the ability to have somebody grow and develop, and maybe you hit lightning in a bottle, maybe you don't. But what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you have somebody who plays as well as the guy that you let go. Now that's what they see. You'll have to see during the season if that's actually what happens. But either way, you have a young guy now who you can mold and develop from the beginning of his career, and you got him under your control for at least 4 years with his rookie contract. So there's a lot of good things to like about what they've done and how they've reshaped this offense. The question is going to continue to be, can they get the quarterback to play better? Now, you got Nick Foles, and I know there's opinions about Nick Foles are all over the map. Which Nick Foles are you getting? Nick Foles from the Jaguars or Nick Foles from the Eagles? There's a lot of questions that come up. And then you have Trubisky. Can he actually hit a target and stay on target? You got a guy wide open in the field. He throws the ball 10 yards away from where he is. So there's always going to be questions. But the reality is that you have a guy who Nagy is comfortable with, who his offensive staff is comfortable with, Laser, who's worked with him before. And honestly, he's not going to be asked to do too much. Hopefully they're hoping to get the running backs running in the lanes in that zone scheme, getting downhill, pick a hole, run through it. Honestly, if they can take some pressure off that quarterback position, get them going with faster routes, faster players in slot, just behind the linebackers and the holes in the cover two zones, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of dink and dunk, move the ball down the field, eat up the time possession, get the running backs going, and hopefully Trubisky can adjust to that game. We know that Nick Foles plays that game well, and that's part of the reason I think why they brought him in, is a familiarity with that offense and the ability to do the things that he needs to do in order to move the ball efficiently in space, in tight spaces like that, with short passes that are accurate, on time, really kind of, again, going back to that real West Coast philosophy. Are the Bears Super Bowl contenders? Well, honestly, this team is once again going to go as far as its defense is going to carry them. If Mack has a double-digit sack year, if Hicks can bring that up with a double-digit sack year, if we can get pressure on the opposite side from a number of different pass rushing sources, it's going to be interesting to see if the Bears can put that together. If the defense comes back and plays at the level that we know that they can play, the Bears have a chance to make a lot of noise this season and do a lot better. If this defense stumbles, I really doubt that the offense is going to be able to carry them through this season. This is my first time playing with with this video software and putting together a video like this. I hope I haven't bored you guys to death. I hope that my nervousness hasn't come out too much, and if it has, I'm going to ask you to forgive me. I hope to be putting out a few more of these as I kind of get into it and get used to this system and everything else. So thank you guys very much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I will look forward to spending some time with you again later. Take care and bear down.